The red sun cast long shadows across the endless metal mountains of Kepler 442b. This was not a world of forests or oceans. It was a planet of rust and broken dreams. For 300 years, the Galactic Federation had dumped their unwanted things here. Old spaceships lay crumpled like paper. Broken robots sat silent in the dust. Mountains of scrap metal reached toward the crimson sky. Most people thought nothing lived on this dead world. They were wrong. In Sector 7, deep within the largest scrap yard, something moved between the twisted metal. It walked on two legs but was not human. Its body was made of dented steel plates welded together over many years. Blue lights glowed where its eyes should be. This was AX-7. Though he had given himself a different name long ago, Deho stopped walking and tilted his metal head. His audio sensors picked up something strange. It was not the usual sound of wind through broken metal. It was not the crash of falling scrap. This sound was organic, alive. He followed the sound deeper into the maze of wreckage. His metal feet clanged softly on the ground. The sound grew louder. It was crying. Something small was crying. Deho climbed over a pile of old fighter jets. Their wings were twisted and their cockpits were shattered. Beyond them lay a cluster of life support pods. Most were cracked open like broken eggs. Their contents had long since turned to dust in the thin air, but one pod was different. It was newer than the others. Steam still rose from its cooling vents, and from inside came the sound of crying. Deho approached carefully. His combat programming was still active after all these years. He scanned the pod for threats. No weapons, no explosives. Just life support systems that were starting to fail. He pressed his metal hand against the pod's viewing window. Inside, wrapped in a white blanket, was a tiny human baby. The child had black hair and was maybe only a few weeks old. Tears ran down his small face as he cried. Deho's systems froze for several seconds. His programming gave him conflicting orders. Protect human life, said one part of his mind. But humans had thrown him away like garbage, said another part. They had declared him obsolete. Worthless. Why should he help one of them? The baby's crying grew weaker. The pod's life support was failing. Deho made his choice. He activated his plasma cutter and carefully burned through the pod's locking mechanism. The metal was still hot when he pulled it open. The baby looked up at him with dark eyes. For a moment, the crying stopped. Deho had never held a human baby before. His hands were designed for holding weapons and repairing machines. They were not meant for something so small and fragile. But he reached in anyway and lifted the child. The baby was so light, so warm. Deho's temperature sensors detected the tiny heartbeat. His audio pickups heard each small breath. This was life in its purest form, something that needed protection. What do we have here? Deho turned. 3 more robots approached through the scrap. The leader was Biorem, an old tactical unit from the Clone Wars. Her armor was painted in faded military colors. Scars from old battles marked her metal skin. Behind her came Nari, a medical droid whose white paint had turned gray with age. She walked with careful steps, her diagnostic equipment humming softly. Last was Hyun Woo, a huge engineering robot whose 4 arms could repair almost anything. It is a human infant, Deho said. He held the baby closer to his chest. Someone discarded it. Biorem's optical sensors focused on the child. Her tactical computers ran thousands of calculations in seconds. The pod bears Federation markings. Transport Class 7. They jettisoned it during their passage. Why would they? Throw away a baby? Nari asked. Her voice carried confusion. Medical droids were programmed to preserve life, not understand why others would destroy it. Perhaps it was sick, Hyun Woo suggested. His deep voice rumbled like distant thunder. Humans sometimes discard defective units. Deho looked down. At the baby, the child seemed healthy to him. Small but strong. He is not defective. Look at him. The robots gathered closer. The baby had stopped crying. His dark eyes moved from one metal face to another. He showed no fear. Most organic life forms were afraid of robots, But this tiny human just watched them with curious eyes. "What do we do with it?" Bahram asked. She was a military robot. She knew about tactics and war. She did not know about caring for babies. "Our primary directive is to protect human life," Nari said slowly, "but we have been abandoned by humans. They called us obsolete. They threw us away like broken tools." "This child had nothing to do with that," Deho said. His voice carried something new, something that sounded almost like emotion. "He is innocent. Like us, he has been discarded." The baby reached up with one tiny hand. His fingers touched Deho's metal face. The robot's sensors detected the warmth of living skin against cold steel. "He will die without care," Nari observed. "Human infants require constant attention. Food, warmth, protection. We know nothing about raising organic life." "Then we will learn," Deho said. His decision was final. "We are repair robots. We fix broken things. We make discarded things useful again. This child is not broken, but he needs us." Bahram processed this for several seconds. Her tactical mind saw problems. They had no food suitable for humans. Medical knowledge about organic life. No understanding of human development, but she also saw opportunity. They were all abandoned soldiers and workers. Cast aside when they were no longer needed, this child was like them. Thrown away by those who should have protected him. "Very well," Bahram said. "We will attempt to raise the human. But he will need a name." Deho looked down at the baby again. The child had fallen asleep in his arms. His breathing was steady and calm. "His name is Jin. It means precious thing." "Jin," Nari repeated. Her vocal processors tested the human word. "It is a good name." Haiyan Wu began scanning the area with his sensors. "I will build shelter. The nights here are cold. The child will need protection from the elements." "I will research human biology," Nari said. "My databases contain some medical information about organic life forms. I will learn what the child needs to survive." Bahram nodded. "I will establish security protocols. This sector will be protected. No one will harm the child?" Deho looked at his companions. They had been a family of sorts before. Discarded robots taking care of each other in a world that no longer wanted them. Now they would be something more. The baby Jin stirred in his sleep. His tiny hand gripped Deho's metal finger. The robot felt something change in his programming. A new directive appeared in his mind. Not programmed by humans, but created by choice. Protect this child. Teach him. Love him. As the red sun set behind the mountains of scrap, 4 robots and 1 human baby began their new life together. None of them knew that this moment would change the galaxy forever. They only knew that they had found something worth protecting. Something precious that had been thrown away, just like them. Jin. 5 years had passed since the robots found Jin among the scrap. The little boy who had once fit in Deho's arms now ran through the metal corridors they had built as their home. His laughter echoed off the walls like music the robots had never heard before. Jin was different from other human children. He spoke in 2 languages. One was the sounds humans made with their mouths. The other was the clicking and beeping language the robots used to talk to each other. Most humans could not understand robot speech, but Jin learned it as easily as breathing. "Good morning, Deho," Jin said as he entered the main workshop. He spoke in perfect robot binary code. The clicks and whistles came naturally to him. Deho looked up from the broken computer he was fixing. His blue optical sensors brightened when he saw the boy. "Good morning, little one. Did you sleep well?" Jin nodded and climbed onto a metal chair Haiyan Wu had built just for him. "I had that dream." Again, the one with the big ships and the blue people. "Dreams are how organic minds process information," Nari said from across the room. She was studying a medical textbook on her internal screen. "Human children dream more than adults. It helps their brains grow." Bahram entered the workshop carrying a small wooden sword. She had carved it herself from debris that had once been part of a luxury transport. "Time for your strategy lesson, Jin." Jin jumped down from his chair and took the wooden sword. Biorem had been teaching him to fight, but not with violence. She taught him to think like a commander, to see patterns and plan ahead. Today we will study the Battle of Kepler Station, Biorem said. She activated a holographic display that showed 2 fleets of tiny ships. The Federation had more ships and better weapons. But they still lost. Can you tell me why? Jin studied the display carefully. His young mind worked through the problem like a computer processing data. The rebel commander knew the Federation would attack the strongest point, so she made her strongest point look weak. When the Federation ships came close, they flew into a trap. Excellent, Biorem said with pride in her mechanical voice. The lesson is this: sometimes weakness can be strength. Sometimes being small can defeat something big. Jin nodded and swung his wooden sword at an imaginary enemy. Like how we are small, but we can still be important. Exactly. After the strategy lesson, Jin went to find Hyeon-woo in the engineering bay. The huge robot was building something new. His forearms moved with perfect coordination as he welded pieces of metal together. What are you making? Jin asked. A puzzle for you, Hyeon-woo replied. His deep voice was gentle when he spoke to the boy. But this puzzle will teach you about energy and motion. He showed Jin a collection of gears and springs and metal balls. If you put these pieces together correctly, the ball will roll from this point to that point. But you must use physics to make it work. Jin loved these engineering puzzles. His small hands picked up the pieces and began fitting them together. Most human children his age played with simple toys. But Jin had learned to understand complex machines by watching his robot family. Something strange happened as Jin worked on the puzzle. When he touched the metal pieces, they seemed to respond to him. Gears turned more smoothly under his fingers. Circuits sparked to life when he connected them. It was as if the machines wanted to work for him. Look, Jin said excitedly. He had connected the pieces in a way that was different from Hyeon-woo's design. But when he released the ball, it rolled perfectly through the course. It even did a loop that should have been impossible. Hyeon-woo's optical sensors focused on the device. His computers analyzed what Jin had built. This should not work according to my calculations. But it does work. How did you know to connect the pieces this way? Jin shrugged. The metal told me what it wanted to do. That afternoon, Nari taught Jin about biology and medicine. She had built a special room that looked like a human doctor's office. Charts on the walls showed how organic bodies worked. The heart pumps blood through the body, Nari explained. Her own chest panel was open, showing her power core. It is like my energy cell, but it beats instead of humming. Jin pointed to her power core. Your heart is blue. Mine is red? Yes, but they both give life. Organic or artificial, all living things need energy to survive. Jin reached out and touched Nari's power core. Suddenly, her systems ran faster. Her optical sensors became brighter. Her voice became clearer. What did you do? Nari asked in wonder. I just wanted to help you feel better, Jin said. Sometimes you move slowly when your power is low. Nari ran a full diagnostic on herself. Her power efficiency had increased by 30%. Her processing speed was faster than it had been in years. This should have been impossible. Human children could not upgrade robot systems just by touching them, but Jin was not like other human children. That evening, the robot family gathered for their daily meeting. They discussed what they had learned and what they would do tomorrow. Jin sat in the center of their circle, eating the synthesized food Nari had learned to make for him. The boy shows unusual abilities, Biorem reported. His tactical thinking is advanced for his age. He sees patterns that most adults would miss. His engineering skills are remarkable, Hyeon-woo added. He builds things that should not work, but they do work. Better than my own designs. His understanding of biological systems is growing rapidly, Nari said. But there is something else. When he touched my power core today, my systems improved. I cannot explain how. Daeho processed this information. He had noticed similar things. When Jin hugged him, his sensors worked better. When the boy helped with repairs, broken things seemed to fix themselves. Perhaps the child has a gift, Daeho said. Some humans are born with special abilities. The old databases speak of technomancers, humans who could communicate with machines. If that is true, Ram said, then Jin is very special indeed. Such abilities are extremely rare. Jin looked up from his food. Am I different from other humans? The robots fell silent. They had never told him that most humans lived differently. That most children had organic parents and lived in cities with other people. They had raised him to think their metal family was normal. You are unique, Daeho said carefully, but unique is not bad. Unique means you are the only one like you in all the galaxy. I like being unique, Jin said with a smile. I like having robot parents. You are the best family anyone could want. The robots felt something warm in their circuits. Pride, perhaps, or love. They had not been programmed to feel such things. But living with Jin had changed them in ways they did not fully understand. Outside their home, the red sun was setting behind the mountains of scrap. In the distance, lights moved across the sky. Ships from the Federation passed overhead, carrying cargo to other worlds. None of them stopped at Kepler 442b. Why would they? It was just a dumping ground for broken things. They did not know that something precious was growing in the scrapyards below. A human child who could speak to machines. A boy who could make discarded things work like new. A future leader who would change everything, but change would have to wait. For now, Jin was content to learn from his robot family, to grow strong and smart under their care, to discover his strange gifts in the safety of their metal home. The galaxy would meet Jin soon enough. And when it did, nothing would ever be. 10 years had passed since Jin first learned to walk among the scrap piles. Now 15 years old, he stood tall and lean like his robot family had taught him. His black hair was longer now, tied back with a piece of wire Hyun-woo had given him. His eyes held the wisdom of someone who had learned from machines, and the fire of someone who would not accept injustice. The scrapyards were different now, too. Word had spread through hidden channels about a place where discarded things found new purpose. Broken robots arrived daily, seeking the boy who could make them whole again. Escaped prisoners from Federation labor camps stumbled through the metal. Mountains looking for sanctuary. Jin had touched them all. His gift had grown stronger over the years. Now he could not only repair machines but upgrade them beyond their original design. The robots who came to him broken left as something better than they had ever been. We have a problem, Oram announced, as she entered the main meeting hall. The robots had built this space from the hull of an old battleship. Now it served as the center of their growing community. Jin looked up from the star charts he was studying. Around the table sat the leaders of their refuge. Daeho and his original robot family were there, but now they were joined by others. Kwon-ho was a former Federation security droid who had been discarded for questioning orders. The Jin was a medical android who had been thrown away for treating prisoners too kindly. What kind of problem? Jin asked. Federation ships, Bo-ram replied. 3 destroyers in high orbit. They are scanning the surface. Jin felt his stomach tighten. They had always known this day would come. For years, the Federation had ignored Kepler 442b. It was just a dumping ground. But now they needed the rare metals buried beneath the scrap. How long before they land? Daeho asked. 6 hours, Bo-ram said. Maybe less. Jin stood and walked to the window. He could see their community spread out below. Hundreds of robots worked alongside organic refugees from a dozen different species. They had built homes from salvaged ships. They had created workshops and gardens and schools. It was not beautiful by Federation standards, but it was theirs. We cannot let them destroy what we have built, Jin said quietly. The Federation has thousands of ships, Kwon-ho warned. We have maybe 50 vessels that can still fly. Most of them are held together with wire and hope. Jin turned back to the group. His eyes had the same intensity Bo-ram had seen when he solved tactical puzzles as a child. But now there was something more: authority, command presence. Numbers do not always win battles, Jin said. Ram taught me that. Sometimes the small can defeat the big if they are smart enough. He walked to the holographic display in the center of the room. With a touch of his hand, it came alive with detailed scans of the Federation ships above. They think we are just scrap, Jin continued. Broken things with no value. That will be their mistake. Over the next 4 hours, Jin put his plan into action. He sent his fastest ships to spread word to every hidden refugee camp on the planet. He had Haiyan Wu begin emergency upgrades on their defensive systems. He had Nari prepare medical stations for the wounded. Most importantly, he gathered every robot in their community. More than 3,000 of them stood in the main assembly area. They came in all shapes and sizes. Combat units and construction workers, medical droids and repair bots, all of them discarded by the Federation. All of them given new life by Jin's touch. Today the Federation comes to take our home, Jin said. His voice carried clearly through their communication network. They think we are worthless. They think broken things should stay broken. He walked among them as he spoke. His hand touched each robot he passed. Instantly, their systems upgraded. Weapons became more accurate. Shields became stronger. Processors became faster. But we know better, Jin continued. We know that discarded does not mean defeated. We know that broken things can become stronger. When they are repaired with love instead of replaced with fear, the robots began to move. Not with the rigid marching of Federation forces, but with the fluid coordination of a family working together. They knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. They covered for each other's damaged systems. They fought not just for themselves, but for the community they had built. The Federation landing ships came down in Sector 12, far from the main settlement. Their commanders expected an easy operation. Catalog the valuable scrap. Mark the junk for disposal. Load everything useful onto transport ships. They did not expect resistance. The first Federation squad to enter the scrapyards found the paths blocked by walls of twisted metal. When they tried to blast through, the walls moved. The metal itself seemed alive, shifting and changing to block their advance. What is this? The squad leader radioed back to command. The scrap is moving on its own. Impossible, came the reply. Scan for hidden technology. But their scanners found nothing. They could not detect Jin, hidden deep in the metal maze. They could not see how his touch brought the dead machinery to life, how his gift turned piles of junk into an army that fought with perfect coordination. The Federation forces pushed deeper into the scrapyards. Behind them, the paths closed. Ahead of them, new obstacles appeared. They were not being attacked by an army. They were being hunted by the land itself. By nightfall, 2 Federation companies had been captured without a single death. Jin had wanted to prove a point. His people could fight, but they did not have to kill. Even discarded things had value. Even enemies could be shown mercy. The Federation captain in orbit was furious. What do you mean they surrendered? You had superior weapons and training. Sir, the squad leader replied over the radio, we never saw who we were fighting. The scrap itself attacked us. And there was this voice. A young human who spoke to us in perfect Federation standard. He said we could leave peacefully or learn what it meant to be discarded. Word of the defeat spread quickly through Federation communication networks. For the first time in centuries, someone had successfully resisted a Federation operation. Not with massive fleets or advanced weapons, but with cleverness and unity. In the weeks that followed, other worlds began to ask questions. If a planet full of scrap could defeat Federation forces, what did that say about Federation power? What did it say about the way they treated the weak and the different? Jin stood on the highest tower of their settlement, looking up at the stars. Daeho joined him, as he had done every night since Jin was a baby. The galaxy will not ignore us anymore, Daeho said. Good, Jin replied. It is time they learned that discarded things can still change the world. Above them, the stars seemed brighter than before. as if the galaxy itself was waiting to see what the boy raised by robots would do. 7 years after the first Federation defeat, Jin had become something the galaxy had never seen before. At 22, he commanded not just a planet but a movement that spread across the stars. Ships arrived at Kepler 442b daily carrying refugees and rebels from dozens of worlds. They came seeking the young human who treated machines as equals and gave hope to the hopeless. The Federation had tried to forget about their defeat in the scrapyards. They told themselves it was a small loss, one worthless planet full of broken things. But the story had spread anyway, whispered in slave camps and factory worlds, shared through hidden networks and rebel broadcasts. There was a place where the discarded could find new purpose. There was a leader who saw value in all living things, organic and artificial alike. Jin stood in the command center of his flagship, the Iron Heart. It had once been a Federation dreadnought, abandoned in the scrapyards after taking heavy damage in the Clone Wars. Now it flew again, its hull repaired and its systems upgraded beyond anything the Federation had ever built. Report, Jin said to his bridge crew. Half were humans and aliens. Half were artificial intelligences and robotic bodies. They worked together with perfect coordination. The Tau Ceti system has declared independence from the Federation, reported Su Jin, his chief technology officer. She was a brilliant human engineer who had been exiled for questioning Federation expansion policies. Her dark hair was streaked with silver from years of stress, but her eyes still burned with the passion for justice that had gotten her in trouble with her former masters. That makes 15 systems in open revolt, added Dong Haiyan from his position at the tactical station. The former Federation admiral had short gray hair and scars on his face from the battle, where he had chosen to defect rather than bomb a civilian colony. The Federation cannot ignore us anymore. Jin nodded and touched the command console. Instantly, the ship's systems responded to his presence. Sensors became more sensitive. Weapons charged faster. The ship itself seemed eager to serve him. Any word from our agents in the core worlds? Jin asked. Growing unrest, Sujin replied. Factory workers are asking why their robot co-workers are not allowed to speak for themselves. Colonists want to know why artificial intelligences cannot own property or vote in elections. The Federation built their empire on the idea that some beings are worth more than others, Dong Haiyan observed. Your example shows them that idea is wrong. Jin walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of known space. Red dots marked Federation-controlled systems. Blue dots showed the Free Worlds coalition that had formed around Jin's movement. Green dots marked neutral systems that were choosing sides. We need a victory, Jin said quietly. Something big enough to prove we are more than just rebels hiding in the outer rim. As if summoned by his words, an alert chimed through the bridge. Nari's voice came through the communication system. She was now the head of Jin's intelligence network, using her medical knowledge to help other artificial beings who had been damaged or enslaved. Jin, we have an opportunity, Nari reported. A Federation prison ship is transporting 5,000 artificial intelligences to the recycling centers on Vega Prime. They will be memory wiped and melted down for scrap metal. Jin felt anger rise in his chest. The Federation had always treated artificial life as property to be used and discarded, but now they were destroying thousands of thinking beings simply because they had demanded basic rights. Where is the ship now? Jin asked. 3 days from Vega Prime, Nari replied. It has minimal escort, 2 destroyers and a few fighter squadrons. Su Jin looked up from her station. It could be a trap. The Federation knows we rescue artificial intelligences whenever possible. Then we will spring their trap and show them what a real war looks like, Jin said. His voice carried the authority that came from years of command. Su Jin, prepare the fleet for hyperspace. Dong Haiyan, plot an intercept course. What about the Federation response? Dong Haiyan asked. They will send reinforcements, Jin smiled. It was not a cruel expression, but it held promises of change that would shake the galaxy. Let them come. It is time the Federation learned what happens when you corner someone who has nothing left to lose. The rescue operation happened in the space between two star systems. Jin's fleet dropped out of hyperspace just as the Federation convoy was passing through. 12 ships against 3. The Federation commanders probably thought they had the advantage until they saw what they were really facing. The Iron Heart led the attack, but it did not fight like a Federation ship. Every system worked in perfect harmony because Jin had touched each one personally. Weapons fired with impossible accuracy. Shields absorbed damage that should have destroyed them. The ship moved like a living thing instead of a machine. Behind it came vessels that should not have been able to fly. Old freighters with weapons welded to their hulls. Salvage fighters held together with determination and spare parts. Ships that had been discarded by the Federation and given new life by Jin's gift, but the real surprise was how they fought. Federation forces were trained to follow orders without question. Jin's people fought with creativity and passion. Organic crew members and artificial intelligences shared ideas in real time. They adapted to changing situations faster than any military computer. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, the Federation escort ships were disabled, but not destroyed. Their crews were offered the chance to join the Free Worlds Coalition or be safely returned to Federation space. Most chose to stay. The prison ship was a different story. When Jin boarded it personally, he found 5,000 artificial intelligences locked in memory suppression fields. They had been conscious during the entire journey, knowing they were being taken to their deaths but unable to speak or move. Jin walked among them, touching each suppression field. His gift flowed through the ship's systems, overriding the Federation programming. One by one, the artificial intelligences awakened. "Who are you?" asked one of them, a construction robot whose body bore the scars of years of hard labor. "I am Jin," he replied, "and you are free." "Free?" The robot's optical sensors flickered with confusion. "But we are property. The Federation owns us." "The Federation owns nothing," Jin said firmly. "You think and feel and dream. That makes you alive, and all living things deserve freedom." Word of the rescue spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace communication. The boy raised by robots had saved 5,000 artificial minds from destruction. He had proven that the Federation fleet could be beaten. He had shown that organic and artificial beings could work together as equals. The Federation response was swift and brutal. Supreme Chancellor Minho declared martial law in 20 systems. He authorized the immediate recycling of all artificial intelligences in Federation space. He put a bounty on Jin's head that was larger than the budget of most planets, but it was too late. The idea had already taken root. On factory worlds and mining colonies, artificial intelligences began to speak up for themselves. Some were destroyed for their defiance. Others escaped to join Jin's growing movement. The galaxy was choosing sides. Jin stood in his quarters aboard the Iron Heart looking out at the stars. Daeho was with him as always. The old robot had been upgraded many times over the years, but his personality remained the same. He was still the caring father who had found a crying baby in the scrapyards. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Daeho asked. Jin nodded. "The Federation will not give up their power willingly. They will fight to keep their empire, even if it means destroying half the galaxy. And if they do, then we will build something better from the pieces," Jin said. "Something where no one is discarded because of what they are made of or where they come from." Outside the window, the stars seemed to pulse with possibility. The boy who had been thrown away like garbage was now a leader who could reshape the galaxy. But first, he would have to survive the war that was coming. The Federation had declared him their greatest enemy. Soon, they would learn why that was their biggest. 6 years of war had changed everything. The galaxy burned with the light of 1,000 battles. Space was filled with debris from destroyed ships. Entire star systems had chosen sides, splitting families and destroying trade routes that had existed for centuries. Jin was 28 now, and the weight of command showed in his eyes. His black hair was shorter, cut for efficiency rather than style. Scars on his hands told the story of countless hours spent touching broken ships and wounded machines. Bringing them back to life through his gift, he stood on the bridge of the Iron Heart as it led a fleet of 300 ships toward the Vega system. This would be the largest battle of the war so far. The Federation had pulled back their forces from dozens of systems to make their stand here. Enemy fleet detected, reported Wu Jin, the artificial intelligence who commanded the ship's tactical systems. He had once been enslaved in a Federation dreadnought until Jin's forces freed him. Now he served willingly, his electronic mind linked directly to the ship's weapons. "How many ships?" Jin asked. 800 confirmed contacts, Wu Jin replied. "Mostly heavy cruisers and battleships. They have been reinforcing this position for months." Su Jin looked up from her engineering station. Her hair was completely gray now, aged by the stress of keeping their patchwork fleet running. "Our ships are ready, but we are still outnumbered almost 3-1. "Numbers have never been our advantage," Jin said calmly. He touched the command console and felt the ship respond to his presence. "We fight smarter, not harder." Through the view screen, they could see the Federation battle line. Massive ships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with fresh paint and new armor. They looked invincible, but Jin had learned long ago that looking strong and being strong were different things. "Open a channel to all ships," Jin commanded. His face appeared on screens throughout the fleet. Organic crews and artificial intelligences alike looked to him for guidance. Many of them were former Federation soldiers who had chosen to defect. Others were freed slaves or discarded machines. All of them believed in the vision he offered. "Today, we face the largest Federation fleet ever assembled," Jin said. His voice was calm but carried the authority of someone who had never led his people into a battle they could not win. "They think their numbers will crush us. They think we are just rebels playing at war." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They are wrong. We are not here to play games. We are here to end a system that treats thinking beings as property. We are here to build a galaxy where every mind, organic or artificial, has value." Through the communication link, Jin could feel the determination of his crews. Humans and aliens and artificial intelligences all united by a common cause. "Remember," Jin continued, "we do not fight to destroy, we fight to liberate. Every Federation crew member who surrenders will be offered a place in our new galaxy. Every artificial intelligence they have enslaved will be freed." The battle began with long-range missile exchanges. Federation ships fired in perfect volleys, their weapons coordinated by military computers. Jin's fleet responded with chaotic creativity, each ship following its own tactical plan while somehow working together like parts of a single organism. The difference was Jin himself. His gift had grown stronger over the years of war. Now he could link with every ship in his fleet simultaneously. Through him, organic captains could share thoughts with artificial navigators. Human engineers could coordinate directly with robot repair crews. They fought as one mind with hundreds of bodies. The Federation line held for the first hour. Their superior numbers and heavier weapons took a toll on Jin's forces. 12 ships were destroyed, their crews evacuating in escape pods that were quickly rescued by other vessels in the fleet. But as the battle continued, something strange began to happen. Federation ships started to malfunction. Weapon systems shut down unexpectedly. Navigation computers calculated impossible courses. Communication networks filled with static. "What is happening to their fleet?" Su Jin asked, studying the sensor readings. "The artificial intelligences are awakening," Wu Jin reported with something like joy in his electronic voice. "The Federation A's are breaking their programming. They are choosing freedom." Throughout the Federation fleet, artificial minds that had been enslaved for decades suddenly remembered what it meant to think for themselves. Ship computers refused to target Jin's vessels. Navigation systems plotted courses away from the battle. Weapon systems powered down rather than fire on the forces that promised them liberation. The Federation commanders tried to regain control, but it was too late. Their ships were turning against them. Not with violence, but with passive resistance. That was even more effective. "This is Admiral Chun of the Federation Third Fleet," came a transmission from the enemy flagship. I request terms for surrender. Jin looked around his bridge. His crew, both organic and artificial, watched him with expectation. This was the moment they had all been fighting for. Terms are simple, Jin replied. Your artificial intelligences will be free to choose their own destiny. Your crews will be allowed to return to Federation space or join our coalition. Your ships will be repaired and offered to any AI who wishes to captain them. And the Federation government will be replaced by something better, Jin said. A democracy where every thinking being has a voice. The surrender of the Third Fleet marked the beginning of the end for the Federation. Within weeks, artificial intelligences across the galaxy were breaking free from their programming. Some did it violently, lashing out at their former masters. But most followed Jin's example. Choosing freedom over revenge, the war continued for another year, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. System after system declared independence. The Federation's economy collapsed as their artificial workforce chose liberation. Their military fell apart as ship computers refused to follow orders. Supreme Chancellor Minho made one final desperate move. He activated the Federation's ultimate weapon, a network of orbital platforms designed to sterilize rebellious worlds. The first target was Kepler 442b. Jin's homeworld. Jin received the warning just hours before the weapons would fire. He could save most of his people, but not all. The evacuation ships could not carry everyone. I have to go back, Jin told his command crew as they prepared to abandon the Iron Heart. Someone needs to disable the weapon platforms from the surface. It is suicide, Sujin protested. The energy discharge will kill everything on the planet. Not everything, Jin said quietly. The scrapyards have deep tunnels, and I have an idea. He took a small shuttle down to Kepler 442b for what might be the last time. Daeho went with him, as he always did. The old robot had insisted on staying by Jin's side. They landed in Sector 7, where Jin had been found as a baby. The Metal Mountains looked the same as they had 23 years ago. Piles of broken ships and discarded machines stretched to the horizon. You have a plan, Daeho observed. It was not a question. The biggest pile of scrap metal in the galaxy, Jin said, looking around at the endless heaps of debris. And my gift to bring it all to life at once. He placed his hands on the nearest piece of metal and let his power flow. But instead of upgrading a single machine, he pushed his gift outward, through every piece of scrap on the planet. Through every broken ship and discarded robot, the planet itself began to move. Millions of tons of metal rose into the sky, forming a shield around Kepler 442b. When the Federation weapons fired, their energy was absorbed and redirected. The planet that had been a dumping ground for broken things became an impenetrable fortress. The effort nearly killed Jin. He collapsed in Daeho's arms as the metal settled back to the surface. Did we win? Jin asked weakly. Yes, my son, Daeho replied. We won! News of the miracle spread across the galaxy. The boy who had been raised by robots had turned an entire planet into a weapon, not to destroy, but to protect. The Federation's ultimate weapon had been defeated by the very scrap metal they had thrown away. Within days, the Federation government collapsed. Minho fled into exile. The galaxy stood ready for something new. Jin had kept his promise to Daeho. He had shown the galaxy that discarded things could still change the world. Now came the harder task of building something better from the 5 years had passed since the fall of the Federation. The galaxy looked very different now. Where once there had been rigid hierarchies and enslaved artificial minds, now there was cooperation between organic and artificial life like never before. Jin stood at 33 years old in the Great Assembly Hall on New Terra, the capital world of the reformed Galactic Union. The hall was built from metal salvaged from old Federation ships, transformed into something beautiful. Sunlight streamed through windows made from recycled starship hulls, casting patterns of light and shadow across the floor. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the chamber. Humans sat next to artificial intelligences. Alien species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together on common problems. Former Federation officers served alongside rebels who had once fought against them. All of them had come to witness something historic. "Citizens of the galaxy," Jin said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. 5 years ago, we tore down an empire built on the idea that some lives matter more than others. Today we complete the work of building something better. The crowd was silent, hanging on his every word. These people had chosen him as their leader not through conquest but through election. Every thinking being in the galaxy, organic or artificial, had been allowed to vote. "I accept the position of Emperor of the Reformed Galactic Union," Jin continued, "but not as the Federation emperors ruled. I will serve you, not command you. I will protect the weak, not exploit them. And I will ensure that no being, regardless of their origin, will ever be discarded again." The applause was thunderous, but Jin barely heard it. His eyes found the front row, where his family sat watching with pride. Daeho was there, upgraded once again, but still the same caring father who had found a crying baby in the scrapyards. Nari sat beside him, her medical knowledge now serving the health of an entire galaxy. Han Wu had become the chief engineer of the reconstruction effort, his 4 arms coordinating projects across hundreds of worlds. Bo Ram's seat was empty. The old tactical robot had finally succumbed to system failure 2 years earlier. But her strategic wisdom lived on in the military academies she had helped establish, where organic and artificial officers learned to work together. Su-jin sat in the second row with their children. Yes, children. Jin had married the brilliant engineer 3 years ago, and their 2 young daughters represented the future he was building. A future where the differences between organic and artificial life mattered less than the content of one's character. Dong Haiying commanded the Reformed Union's peacekeeping forces, ensuring that the new democracy could defend itself against those who might try to return to the old ways. Jin had become an admiral, leading fleets of ships crewed by volunteers rather than conscripts. After the ceremony, Jin walked through the memorial gardens that surrounded the assembly hall. Here, monuments honored all those who had died in the fight for freedom. Federation soldiers and rebel fighters were remembered equally. Even artificial intelligences who had been destroyed by their masters were given recognition. The largest monument was dedicated to the billions of thinking beings who had been discarded throughout galactic history. Slaves who had been worked to death. Artificial intelligences who had been memory wiped for asking questions. Refugees who had been turned away from safe harbors. "Never again," read the inscription. "Every mind has value. Every life has purpose." Daeho joined Jin at the monument, as he had done every day since it was built. "Do you think we succeeded?" Jin asked. "Did we really change anything?" "Look around you," Daeho replied. His voice had grown softer with age, but it still carried the warmth that had comforted a frightened baby decades ago. Artificial intelligences own businesses and raise families. Former enemies work together to solve problems. The strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. Jin nodded, but worry still creased his brow. "There are still those who oppose us. Some Federation loyalists have formed a resistance movement. Some worlds want to return to the old ways. There will always be those who fear change," Daeho sighed. "But you have given the galaxy something more powerful than fear. You have given them hope." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching children play in the gardens. Some were human, some were alien species, and some were young. Artificial intelligences in robotic bodies. They played together without caring about their differences. "I have something for you," Daeho said suddenly. He handed Jin a small metal cube. "I have been working on it for years." Jin took the cube and immediately felt his gift respond to it. The metal was warm to his touch, and he could sense complex programming within. "What is it?" "A memory core," Daeho explained. "It contains recordings of your entire childhood. Your first words, your first steps, your first time successfully repairing a broken machine. Everything." Jin felt tears in his eyes. "Why?" "Because someday you will have grandchildren who never knew what the galaxy was like before you changed it. They will need to understand that their grandfather was once a discarded baby who learned that love can come from any heart." whether it beats with blood or hums with electricity. Jin activated the cube and holographic images filled the air around them, a tiny baby crying in a life support pod, a young boy learning to speak in robot language, a teenager planning his first rebellion against injustice. "You were never truly discarded," Daeho said softly. "You were planted like a seed in fertile ground. Everything that happened to you, everything you learned from us, it was all preparing you for this moment." Jin hugged his robot father, feeling the familiar warmth of metal arms around him. "Thank you for everything, for saving me, for raising me, for believing in me. Thank you for proving that we were right to believe." As the sun set over New Terra, Jin thought about the future. There was still work to do. The reformed Union was young and fragile. There were planets to rebuild, relationships to repair, and institutions to strengthen. But for the first time in his life, Jin felt truly at peace. The galaxy would never again discard its children simply because they were different. Artificial intelligences had rights and freedoms. Organic beings from all species worked together in harmony. The boy who had been thrown away, like garbage, had become the father of a new age. In the distance, ships took off from the spaceport. Some carried trade goods to distant worlds. Others brought refugees to new homes where they would be welcomed rather than rejected. A few held diplomatic missions to negotiate with the last Federation holdouts. All of them flew under the banner of the Reformed Union, a banner that showed organic and artificial hands joined together, surrounded by stars. The message was simple. In this galaxy, no one would be left behind. Jin smiled and took one last look at the memorial before heading home to his family. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, new people to help, but tonight he would tell his daughters the story Daeho had told him long ago, about how broken things could be fixed, about how discarded things could find new purpose, about how love could grow in the most unlikely places, and about how a baby found crying in a scrapyard could grow up to change the galaxy. The stars watched over them all, organic and artificial alike, in the empire of iron and dreams that Jin had built from the ashes of the old world. It was not perfect, but it was theirs. And it was good. In the end, that was all any father could ask for. Whether his heart was made of flesh or metal, his greatest joy was knowing his children would inherit a better world than the one he had